The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a bit of an enigma. It's everything we've been asking Nintendo for. It's weird, it's experimental. Zelda's finally a girl, but as usual, the devil is in the details. The game has highs encroaching on the greatest moments in Zelda history, but also has some bewildering issues that have you wondering, why am I putting myself through this? This is the type of game where I really can't find a definitive stance. I'm both severely disappointed and pleasantly surprised in seemingly equal amounts. To start on a positive note, I really enjoyed the story. It follows the classic Zelda formula while filling in the details with creativity and style. I'm not giving details because this is a spoiler-free review, but I can speak on the quality of the writing, which is pretty high for Zelda standards. It's not quite Twilight Princess, but it's definitely closer to the likes of that than, say, Breath of the Wild. It's your standard regional crises caused by the main problem that you're trying to undo. Yeah, Zelda 101, but each region as well as their inhabitants are much richer in character and personality than normal. I especially love the character you help in the Hebrew region, and to me, the game was worth it for that little dude alone. Your companion character, Tri, is also a cutie pie. He's a silly little light blob that makes sure the void doesn't spill into our world. He doesn't really understand emotions, but he does feel them. He kinda reminds me of Tech from the Thousand-Year Door in terms of personality. He's so wholesome and precious, and I want one. While our little homie is made of light, and the world is filled with cute, whimsical character design, the same can't be said about the narrative. There's some dark themes explored in this game, a bit darker than you'd normally expect. Nothing quite Majora's Mask, but definitely darker than I was anticipating. It's a game that doesn't treat you like a stupid kid, and knows you've played a video game before, and doesn't try to shelter you from the direness of the situation at hand. Overall, the story is solid, and all the characters are well written, and left a positive impression on me. On the negative side, though, the pacing is a bit inconsistent. Some story beats can be knocked out in minutes, while others will have you begging to just let you enter a damn dungeon already. On the whole, the pacing is okay. Not nearly as egregious as some of the other notoriously annoying sections in previous games, but it starts to get there. I'd say the areas with the best pacing are the Zora and Hebra sections, while the worst are the desert section and the endgame section. None of this is necessarily a deal breaker, but the inconsistencies do tend to become a little noticeable. The world that these stories are helping to build, however, is full of character and whimsy. It takes a lot of notes from its predecessor, the Link's Awakening remake, and packs the world so densely there's something to do in every corner of the map. Unlike Link's Awakening, however, this world feels much less like a grid and more like a real lived-in place. The borders between areas in that game were rigid. Everything was a square, or squares upon squares. As a Game Boy game at heart, this makes sense, and is not an insult to the game design as a whole. It's a design choice brought on by maximizing the limits of the hardware it was originally developed for, leaving an artifact of a derelict style of game design that's been fossilized into its very DNA. In Echoes of Wisdom, however, this is not the case. It's worth noting that this isn't a follow-up to Link's Awakening, it's a follow-up to Switch Remake Link's Awakening, so these limitations specifically no longer exist. On the downside of this, however, it seems Nintendo forgot to consider that the system is 7 years old and definitely has more limitations than other contemporary hardware. It suffers from a lot of stuttering, jagged edges, and its fair share of graphical glitches. You gotta reason with the system. You can't just march on as fast as you'd like sometimes. It's way too ambitious for its own good, but it's definitely not unplayable. It can just get a bit irritating. Another thing worth noting is this game-breaking glitch that I encountered in the Elden region. All I can say without spoiling anything is to make sure you don't go straight there, even by accident. Make sure you go to Kakariko Village before heading up the mountain, or you'll be gated from progression. I think that's what causes it. No one's been able to figure it out, but I specifically tried to avoid doing that when I had to restart the game from square one. Yeah, it's very much a similar problem to the Skyward Sword glitch that Nintendo had to put out a channel just to patch. I had to start the game from square one so I could actually progress, and it was just awful. It's also pretty far into the game, so please, just make sure you go to Kakariko before going to Death Mountain, and you are welcome. It's the same art style, same engine, which means it's gorgeous, stylish, and downright cute. Even the soundtrack and sound design follow an air of cartoonish whimsy. What's different is the new mechanics. Link's Awakening was your typical Zelda affair gameplay-wise. You use various different items that you amass through exploration and progression to complete dungeons and help the island dwellers you spend your adventure getting to know. You're also equipped with your sword and shield, which are your default methods of combat in every other Zelda game. Except that one. In this game, you're outfitted with the Tri-Rod, which can conjure up echoes of various foes and objects you find across the land of Hyrule. This is such a cool mechanic. You can summon things to help you traverse the world, like household objects that can be used as platforms. There's trampolines, water blocks, and a bunch of other stuff that you can use to personalize your traversal options. This even includes enemies with wings that you could pick up and use as a makeshift Cucco. Cucco? If it's a Cucco, does he have a chair in his bedroom? Yeah, you can glide in this game, and it's awesome. Traversal is consistently fun, engaging, intuitive, and even a little silly. But the use of the Tri-Rod doesn't end there. You can also get enemies you defeated to fight on your behalf with this mechanic. Which is where the game kind of falls apart. The ability in itself is super cool and diverse, but it's fun to watch. And that's what you spend most of your time doing in terms of combat. Watching. I never thought I'd be cucked by a moblin, but that's what the fuck is happening. There's a mode you can enter that allows you to fight normally called Sword Fighter mode, but this is just awful. Slight spoilers, but this power is obtained very early in the game. Skip to the timestamp to skip minor spoilers. After encountering an Echo of Link, he drops his sword. Zelda picks it up. Cool. She has a sword now. She can fight. Except no, she can't. She can channel the spirit of Link through the sword and temporarily transform into him. This is on a very strict time limit that makes you more anxious to use it than the doors in FNAF. It's an unnecessarily obtuse mechanic that makes you wonder if they were too scared to take Link out of the moment-to-moment gameplay, or if they're just too scared to let Zelda fight for herself. Either way, it's stupid and cowardly game design. Do you really not have enough faith in Zelda as a character? How many times does she have to do something badass before they let her have as much power and control as Link? This leads to a good amount of the combat encounters feeling drawn out for the sake of arbitrary rules that just hinder your enjoyment. Why can't she just use the sword? Why can't she just use an echo of the sword? That would still require a level of resource management, but it would be a lot more forgivable. Again, it feels like you're actively being cucked from the action. You temporarily let Link take over your body to swipe a sword a couple times. Just let me hold the sword for more than 15 seconds. You can upgrade this ability, but by the time it gets to an even slightly usable state, you've already maxed it out. The combat had the potential to be the most interesting a 2D Zelda game could possibly offer, and then it just ends up being the most clunky and annoying combat loop I've ever experienced. The integration of this mechanic fares much better with the puzzle design, however. It's not perfect by any means. It's the most mixed of mixed bags. In its good moments, the puzzles make you feel, aha! While other times it's more, aha. The worst of these have you brute forcing your way through, just trying every echo to see what could get past this stupid fucking obstacle that just makes you feel dumb by the time you're done with it. But the best ones have you actually examining full puzzle box rooms and thinking how you can solve this with your limited allotment of Tri-Rod power. This is another aspect of the game with very high highs and very low lows, but there are more highs than lows in this aspect, at least. What doesn't fare as well, however, are the rewards. The spoils from completing various side quests, optional puzzles, and combat encounters are underwhelming at best and downright disappointing and insulting at most times. Usually you end up getting materials for this game's version of cooking. Smoothies. You combine two different materials together to make various smoothies with differing effects based on what you put in, similar to Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. They just couldn't help themselves, and ended up shoehorning in a mechanic that I used, I shit you not, twice. Once when the mechanic was explained, and once when I was required to use it to progress. These end up being useless when you take into account the various equipment that give you buffs, as well as the fact that you can just spawn a bed to recover hearts basically wherever you are. Seriously, I was able to use this in the final boss if timed correctly. I actually made it part of my strategy. It feels more like an excuse to pad out the already massive amount of moving parts this game has mechanically, rather than genuinely a good addition to the game. Another thing this game gets right pretty much the whole time, though, is fan service. None of it feels like nostalgia bait, and it truly just feels like they had ideas for creative recontextualization of things that have only appeared in 3D games. I won't go into specifics, you'll understand and you'll know it when you see it, but this will never have you thinking, this shit again, and will always have you feeling like, holy shit, it's that guy! And as a lifelong Zelda fan, I felt seen, never pandered to. Overall, this game is definitely fun enough and worth your time if you're looking for a solid Zelda adventure. I'd try to wait for it to go on sale because the gameplay does leave a lot to be desired. It's so ambitious that it's a bit broken, but simultaneously so stuck in its ways that it's afraid to just let you play the game without adhering to its ridiculous laws that exist for seemingly no reason. This one is for the fans of the Zelda franchise, not necessarily the Zelda formula. And I definitely would not recommend it to anybody as a first Zelda game. I hate to see it, but you can do way better than this game. And it's a shame because Zelda's first outing had the potential to be something magical. It had all the makings of a game that felt like Zelda, and could propel the series into new territory while retaining what makes it Zelda. But instead, it was all just illusory parlor tricks. Alright, ladies, gentlemen, gentledoms, and all pointy-eared freaks of the world, remember to like for power, comment for courage, subscribe for wisdom. I promise it works. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and stay out of Eldin before going to Death Mountain. I'm so serious. Please heed my warning, this is not a joke.